Welcome back. Today, we're going to open the file on the Hong Kong standstill.
A pivotal one.
Yeah, this happened right after the Tokyo emergence, when everything was still, well, chaotic doesn't even cover it.
Total chaos and trauma, really, for the GDF and the world.
Exactly. And if Tokyo is the moment everyone knew, okay, Titans are real, then Hong Kong. Hong Kong seems like the moment the GDF realized, hang on, we might have this whole thing wrong.
That's precisely the objective for this analysis session. It's less about the tactics, though we'll touch on them, and more about the biological data, the seismic readouts. What did we actually learn?
Because our basic assumption was shattered.
Completely. We went in thinking Titans are basically hostile, chaotic forces aimed, mostly at us, at humanity. And then Victoria Harbor happened. Highly unusual sequence of events.
Okay, so let's put ourselves in Major Rostova's boots. She's commanding the response, still operating under the shadow of Tokyo.
Right, and her whole doctrine, her personal code even, was shaped by that earlier Sydney incident. Never hesitate. Hardline.
But Hong Kong threw her a curveball. Not just one threat, but two, appearing almost simultaneously. A genuine nightmare scenario for any commander.
A two-front nightmare converging on one of the densest cities on the planet. Let's lay out the players.
Okay, who did GDF systems flag first?
The primary target, the one that set off all the high-priority alarms, was designated Quake-Wing, almost immediately classified as a Terran type.
Terran, because...
Proximity to the Asian coastal plates, its structural signature bore similarities to Magmox, which we just encountered. The energy readings, too.
And the field reports called it the Terran Harpy. Sounds intimidating.
It was. The threat profile was extreme. Speed was the main factor. Rostova's orders were crystal clear, echoing from Tokyo. Seek and destroy any alpha-level aerial threat immediately.
And Quake-Wing qualified.
Oh, absolutely. It was clocked approaching the coast at Mach 3. Think about that. A crystalline blur, one pilot called it.
Mach 3. That gives interceptors almost no time at all. Minutes, maybe?
Exactly. Mere minutes from detection to potential impact. It screams immediate existential threat. A long-range killer on approach.
So standard procedure would be intercept and neutralize, full stop. Given that speed, you'd assume hostile intent towards the city, right? Infrastructure, population centers.
That was the assumption. That was the threat model GDF was working with. You see something moving that fast, that big, you don't wait to ask questions.
But something did make Rostova wait, didn't it? How did a second threat, something apparently ground level, manage to completely scramble that priority?
Yeah.
Wasn't the Mach 3 object the bigger immediate danger?
Logically, yes. Yeah. Based on the rulebook, absolutely. But the second threat, it wasn't just a threat. It hit differently. It materialized with such a sudden, overwhelming force.
And it triggered something personal for Rostova.
Precisely. We're talking about the Krak-Os, the abyssal swarm.
Okay, swarm is the key word there. Not a single entity like Leviathan in Tokyo.
No, this was something else entirely. Thousands of them. Maybe tens of thousands. 50-foot-long, squid-like organisms, but acting in concert. Coordinated.
Abyssal. So, coming from the deep ocean trenches. Like Leviathan.
That's the classification, yeah. Different methodology, though. Leviathan was a brute force shockwave. The Krak-Os, they erupted. Right out of Victoria Harbor.
Erupted.
Like the water itself boiled over. One moment, the harbor, the next. This living tide of biological nightmares, as the field units described it. A wave of destruction washing over the docks, the piers.
And latching onto buildings.
Instantly, onto the skyscrapers, using tentacles, suckers, whatever they have, anchoring themselves. A swarm climbing the city itself.
So picture this. Rostova's got a Mach 3 hypersonic weapon bearing down on her position on one screen.
Her primary, ordered target.
And on the other screen, thousands of creatures, physically engulfing the downtown area, the harbor. It's a perfect storm for tactical paralysis.
Destroy the incoming missile or stop the flood that's already here. It's an impossible choice, designed to break a commander.
Let's dig into the Krak-Os a bit more. Their strategy seems weird. Not just smashing things, but latching on.
Yeah, it's fascinating in a horrifying way. Their power wasn't brute kinetic force, not primarily anyway. It was their coordination, their sheer numbers, and this anchoring behavior.
What was the effect of them latching onto the skyscrapers? Structural damage.
Some, yes, but it seemed more like immobilization, like they were trying to wrap the city up, stop its functions. We saw them using these immense suction cups, maybe secreting some kind of organic adhesive or anchor.
Trying to achieve consumption, resource extraction, setting up a nest.
The early analysis pointed towards, well, maybe both consumption and some kind of environmental reshaping. By anchoring, they formed this vast interconnected bionetwork across the city's infrastructure.
Like a living circuit board.
Potentially. Drawing ambient energy, processing materials directly from the buildings. It's still debated.
Yeah.
But the visual impact, it was instantaneous.
How fast did they take over the harbor visually?
Field reports clocked it at under 80 seconds. Less than a minute and a half from initial eruption to large parts of the harbor front just disappearing under the shifting mass of tentacles. A truly paralyzing sight.
And Hong Kong Harbor. It's not like it's an empty bay. It's one of the busiest, most complex ports in the world, packed with ships, ferries, dense urbanization right up to the waterline.
Which made the situation exponentially worse. Mass evacuation, forget it. By sea, by land. Logistically impossible on that timescale in that environment. The density worked against us.
So immediate neutralization of the visible threat, the Krak-Os, felt like the only practical option to save lives on the ground.
Which brings us right back to Major Rostova and that terrible, terrible timing. The Sydney incident. The ferry disaster where her hesitation, by her own admission, costs lives. That defined her.
That never hesitate again mantra. It wasn't just protocol, it was personal, deeply personal. She carried the scar literally and figuratively.
Right, and then, as the Krak-Os erupted, the sheer force of the water displacement, it swamped several civilian boats still trying to get clear. Oh no.
And caught right in the middle of it, clearly visible on her main tactical display, was a passenger ferry. Capsizing, sinking.
Directly mirroring the Sydney incident. Her worst failure, playing out live right in front of her, caused by the very threat she wasn't targeting yet.
That was the trigger, the flash of trauma. The post-action psych evaluation was quite clear on this. It caused a critical pause.
How long are we talking? Seconds?
Milliseconds?
Milliseconds felt like minutes, I imagine. But the data logs show a measurable delay between the visual of the sinking ferry and her next command input. A brief period where she was utterly frozen.
Frozen between instinct and orders. Her ingrained never hesitate code screamed fire on Quake-Wing. Her mission orders demanded it.
But her eyes, her gut were seeing the immediate horror unfolding below. The Krak-Os overwhelming the harbor, the ferry sinking, a mass casualty event happening right now.
So that hesitation, born from trauma, it ironically bought time.
It did. If she had fired on Quake-Wing instantly, followed protocol to the letter the second the ferry went down, what were the projections for the city?
If the Krak-Os swarm was left unchecked while Aegis Squadron engaged Quake-Wing, catastrophic. High 9 figures in property damage, civilian casualties, potentially uncountable. The swarm was already integrating itself.
Neutralizing Quake-Wing would have been following orders, a tactical win by the book, but it would have meant sacrificing Hong Kong.
So that single, terrible second of inaction, it changed everything.
It allowed Quake-Wing to arrive. And that's when the rulebook wasn't just bent, it was thrown out the window. That second allowed the Terran Harpy to show its true colors.
Okay, so Quake-Wing arrives, Mach 3, looks like an attack run. But Dr. Thorne's team, they were running newer sensor suites, weren't they? Biosignature analysis.
Yes, this was cutting-edge stuff back then,
Yeah.
integrating biological readings into the standard GDF Aegis defense network. And Thorne flagged something almost immediately that contradicted the standard picture.
What did the standard picture show?
Traditional radar thermal imaging, they showed a massive, fast-moving object. High kinetic energy, structurally dense, likely that crystalline composition we mentioned, looked like pure hostility. A weapon delivery system.
Thorne's biosensors.
They painted a different picture. They measure things like neurological activity, stress indicators, ambient biological energy fields, and Quake-Wing wasn't registering as predatory or aggressive in the way Magmox had.
How did it register?
The readouts indicated extreme agitation, even panic. That was the word used in Thorne's initial flag.
Yeah.
Agitated, panicked, like something rushing towards the threat, not being the primary threat itself.
That's completely counterintuitive for a Mach 3 attack profile.
Totally. It suggested defense or desperation, not aggression aimed at the GDF or the city. More like an animal rushing back to defend its nest.
And that crystalline structure, you mentioned it was like diamond. How does that affect GDF's ability to engage it?
Significantly. Standard kinetic rounds or missiles. Hitting something that dense, that fast is incredibly difficult. It might just absorb or deflect the impact. GDF doctrine relied heavily on thermal or explosive payloads.
But crystalline structures often interact weirdly with energy, right?
Right.
We saw that later with Terran Tech.
Exactly. It hinted at energy manipulation, absorption, redirection. capabilities we were only beginning to guess at. It made Quake-Wing an even more unpredictable target, a terrifying defensive package.
Okay, so this agitated, super fast, defensively structured creature doesn't slam into the city center. What did it do?
It dove straight down, not at GDF assets, not at evacuation points, but directly towards the skyscrapers already infested with the Krak-Os swarm, right into the thick of it.
Voluntarily entering the kill zone of the other Titan faction.
That was the moment the paradigm shifted in real time. We weren't just fighting monsters anymore. We were suddenly observers, unwilling observers of what looked like a targeted strategic counterattack. Quake-Wing wasn't there to fight us. It was there to fight the Krak-Os.
And it didn't use claws or energy beams initially.
No. Its first move was purely biological warfare. Highly sophisticated.
The resonance pulse. Thorne's team must have gone nuts when they saw that data. Described as a high-frequency shriek, sounded physical.
Yeah, pilots in Aegis Squadron reported feeling it as a physical pressure wave, even through their cockpits. But the key wasn't the volume or the raw power, it was the frequency.
Explain that. How did the Krak-Os coordinate? You said they were like a hive mind.
We hypothesized they used some form of low-frequency resonance, maybe infrasound or bioelectrical signals, to maintain cohesion across thousands of individual bodies. Think of it like biological Wi-Fi, coordinating the swarm's actions, allowing them to function as one living tide. Continuous, stable signal needed.
So Quake-Wing's shriek wasn't just loud.
It was precisely tuned. A high-frequency counterpulse designed specifically to interfere with, to jam, the Krak-Os coordination frequency.
Like a biological electronic countermeasure, a denial-of-service attack on their hive mind.
Exactly, a perfect analogy. The sonic blast didn't necessarily vaporize them on contact. Instead, it shattered their ability to think as one.
What was the immediate visual effect?
Chaos. The living tide fractured instantly. Those coordinated movements, the anchoring, the climbing, it all stopped. The individual Krak-Os units started flailing, thrashing, confused, thousands of 50-foot squids suddenly acting independently, counterproductively. Their greatest strength coordination became their biggest weakness.
And this was the smoking gun, the first undeniable proof that Titans fight each other, using tailored biological weapons.
Undeniable, targeted, faction-specific biological warfare. This wasn't random monster matching. This was calculated. This was war between them.
Which must have sent ripples through GDF analysis teams, especially Dr. Tanaka's unit, right? The data crunchers trying to make sense of it all.
Tanaka's team had the impossible job. Reconcile the kinetic data, Mach 3 threat, with the biodata, panic, defense, and the tactical action, saving the city by attacking the other monster.
And the conclusion they reached?
It was chilling because it explained everything, but changed everything we thought we knew. Tanaka's summary analysis contained the line that became infamous within GDF command.
It's not attacking. It's defending its territory.
That single sentence just oiled. It demolished the entire foundation of GDF's Titan response strategy. We weren't the sole targets. We weren't even necessarily the primary target.
Targets is in
the way.
Or maybe irrelevant bystanders half the time. The Titans, or at least these two factions, the Terrans and the Abyssals, were driven by something much older, much more fundamental than simple aggression towards humans.
territorial logic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fighting over resources, energy sources, strategic locations, whatever territory means to giant, potentially alien biomechanical life forms. They had their own conflict, their own geography, their own war aims, and Hong Kong was just one battleground in that ongoing ancient conflict.
Which created the field we now call kaiju geopolitics.
Yeah.
But for Rostova, in that moment, it wasn't theory. It was life or death right now. So Thorne figures out what happened biologically. Tanaka figures out the why territory. But Rostova, she's still in the cockpit dealing with the immediate now.
And it's the worst kind of now. She has scientific confirmation, essentially, that Quake-Wing just acted defensively, maybe even protectively, towards the city, but her standing orders haven't changed. Her ingrained trauma hasn't changed.
Let's map out the tactical nightmare again. Quake-Wing is the alpha hostile target on her screen. Orders. Destroy. Instinct from Sydney. Never hesitate.
But reality, firing on Quake-Wing right now means letting the Krak-Os regroup. The city falls. Guaranteed. Millions dead or worse.
Option 2. Hold fire on Quake-Wing. Violate direct orders. Violate her deepest personal code. Risk her career, her squadron's lives.
On the hope, the assumption, that this alien creature, this Terran harpy, will continue to act as an unintentional shield for humanity. Trusting the monster. It goes against everything that GDF stood for.
Planetary defense against Titans. Not with Titans.
It's a paradox designed to break a soldier's mind. Follow orders and lose the city, or betray your principles and maybe, just maybe, save it.
This is where Rostova's story really turns, isn't it? The hardliner forced to make the most flexible, most unconventional call imaginable.
She had to override years of training, years of command philosophy, and that deep personal wound from Sydney, all in a split second.
Did you try to contact command?
Oh,
Get clarification? New orders based on the Quake-Wing pulse.
now time. The pulse hit, the Krak-Os fractured, and suddenly there was this window of opportunity. Quake-Wing was engaged, the swarm was vulnerable. It wasn't about waiting for confirmation. It was about seizing the tactical advantage presented by the monster versus monster fight. Her paralysis broke just as the situation demanded immediate action.
And the action she took? Historically unprecedented.
Absolutely. She chose option 3, the impossible option. Support the designated enemy.
She ordered Aegis Squadron
Uh-huh.
to help Quake-Wing.
Her exact command, logged and verified. Aegis lead to all units. Provide fire support for the Terran monster. Target the Krak-Os swarm. Repeat, target the Abyssal swarm.
Wow, just hearing that order repeated, you can imagine the silence on the comms for a second. The sheer... Did I hear that right?
Utter shock and confusion within the squadron based on post-action interviews. They were ordered to protect the very thing they were scrambled to kill and attack the secondary threat that was, until moments ago, the immediate problem. It's the first documented instance of deliberate human-Titan tactical cooperation ever.
What was the risk assessment there? What if Quake-Wing finished off the Krak-Os and then just turned on Aegis Squadron, its primary target technically?
The risk was astronomical. Aegis was essentially betting their lives that Quake-Wing's territorial imperative, or whatever drove it, was solely focused on the abyssal threat. That GDF was beneath its notice once the primary enemy was gone.
Book payoff.
Immediate and decisive. The combination was devastating. GDF missiles hitting the now disorganized Krak-Os units, breaking up clumps, creating more chaos.
Well, Quake-Wing hits them again.
Yeah, it let out another, possibly amplified, sonic pulse into the already fractured swarm. The effect was like kicking over an anthill that was already on fire. Total rout. The surviving Krak-Os just dissolved back into the harbor, retreating into the deep.
They won. Humanity, GDF, and a giant crystalline monster working together. What happened right after? Did Quake-Wing acknowledge the help? Attack?
Neither really. That's the unsettling part. Once the Krak-Os were gone, submerged, Quake-Wing circled the area once, slowly.
They're like assessing the situation.
Maybe. Then it emitted one final sound. Not the aggressive shriek, not directed at Aegis, just a single resonant tone. Analysts tried for weeks to decipher, was it triumph? Warning. Communication.
And the conclusion?
Impossible to interpret, pure alien ambiguity. And then it just
Left.
accelerated back up to hypersonic speed and vanished.
Leaving Aegis Squadron intact, Hong Kong saved. But the GDF profoundly changed.
Changed. And deeply unsettled. They achieved victory by fundamentally violating their own reason for being. They weren't the sole defenders anymore. They were now potentially just another player, a minor one, in a war they didn't understand.
Okay, this takes us straight into the strategic fallout. Tanaka's theory. Quake-Wing was defending territory. But what territory? Surely not the human city itself.
That seems highly unlikely. Given everything we learned later, the Gorgon Root star charts showing Terrans are extraterrestrial, Magmox using Giza as a power source, they interact with Earth's infrastructure and geology, not necessarily its inhabitants.
So what could be valuable to a Terran Titan under or near Hong Kong?
Several theories emerged. 1. Hong Kong sits near a complex tectonic boundary, maybe a geothermal energy source, a rich mineral deposit, something Quake-Wing needed to harvest or protect.
Makes sense for energy-hungry beings. What else?
2. The tectonic location itself. Perhaps it's a key transit point, a gateway to deeper subterranean networks the Terrans use. Disrupting that point could be strategically vital for the Abyssals.
Okay. And the third theory. You mentioned sonic resonance earlier.
Right. This one gained traction later, especially with Thorne's work on Titan communication. What if that specific geographical location, perhaps amplified by the unique urban canyon acoustics of Hong Kong, acts as a natural amplifier or node for Terran long-range communication? Or navigation?
So the Krak-Os weren't just anchoring to buildings. They were trying to dampen or disrupt that specific resonance point, blind or deafen the Terrans in this sector.
It's a compelling hypothesis. Quake-Wing wasn't defending land. It was defending its ability to hear or speak across its territory, its communication infrastructure.
If any of those are true, it completely reframes the GDF's role, doesn't it?
Utterly. We go from being Earth's defenders against all alien monsters to being, what? unwilling referees in their interplanetary resource war, occasional desperate allies of convenience.
Suddenly, GDF strategy isn't just about bigger guns. It's about understanding alien geopolitics. Which faction is where? What resources are they fighting over? Can we predict their movements based on, say, seismic activity or energy signatures?
Exactly. Threat modeling becomes infinitely more complex. Budget allocations change. Do we develop weapons effective against Terran crystal or abyssal swarms? Do we position forces near suspected resource nodes, just in case?
And the biggest shift? Maybe. Maybe sometimes we don't engage. Maybe sometimes we let them fight.
That became the agonizing debate post-Hong Kong. Can humanity's survival sometimes depend on exploiting their conflict, using one monster to shield us from another? It's morally fraught, but Hong Kong proved it could be tactically effective.
A dangerous game. Playing sides in a war where you don't even know the rules, let alone the player's long-term goals.
Extremely dangerous. But Hong Kong cracked the door open. It forced GDF Command to consider that maybe brute force wasn't the only answer. It paved the way reluctantly for people like Dr. Thorne to push for understanding, for communication, however desperate that seemed.
Because the temporary alliance, that impossible choice by Rostova, it worked. The tactical success was undeniable, even if the strategic and ethical implications were staggering.
Command couldn't ignore the outcome, even if it violated every existing protocol. For a few critical hours, the enemy was a strategic asset.
And this whole incident, understanding they have factions, territories, strategies, it leads directly to later discoveries, right? Like the Dead Sea.
It's the next logical step. Hong Kong showed us territorial defense, factional conflict. The Dead Sea anomaly revealed the potential purpose behind it all. Not just war, but maybe something more like an economy.
An alien resource extraction economy playing out across our planet. Bagmox charging at Giza, Krak-Os potentially processing brine or minerals.
Exactly. It suggests the planetary scale system we're caught in the middle of. Hong Kong was the first time we clearly saw the gears of that system clashing.
So wrapping up the Hong Kong analysis, the key takeaway seems definitive. The Titans aren't just mindless beasts rampaging randomly.
Yeah, not at all. Nor are they solely focused on humanity as the primary enemy, like some kind of unified invasion force.
They have their own complex relationship, their own conflicts, likely ancient ones, driven by logic we're only starting to glimpse. Territorial, resource-based.
And humanity's survival in Hong Kong hinged on accidentally stumbling into the middle of one of their battles and picking the right side for a moment.
Which came at a huge cost to the GDS identity.
Absolutely. The mission clarity was gone. From warrior to unwilling referee to reluctant temporary ally, the victory felt ambiguous, heavy.
The GDF went into Hong Kong thinking they knew who the enemy was, the invaders, the monsters banging at the door.
But if one Titan defends our city against another Titan that is actively attacking it, and we already suspect from early Gorgon root data that the Terrans, like Quake-Wing, aren't originally from Earth.
It forces you to ask a very uncomfortable question.
Whispered, if the Titans are defenders, then who's the real invader?